Okay, everyone, welcome to this discussion on the certification scam. Almost no one can do anything, get a job, or even hire someone else to do a job for them without having to comply with some ridiculous and oppressive and money grabbing licensure slash certification or other bureaucratic regulatory requirement, right? It forces people, uh, you know, to get entrapped into the education system, which, I'm not opposed to people going to school and learning a trade, obviously, but it's been turned into such a money racket and requiring you to piss away years of your life just to do a trade that could be learned as it used to be in the old days while you were on the job as an apprentice, right? Years ago, you would learn a trade without going into massive debt and requiring years of your life while not getting paid, but instead going into debt, um, while you were learning as an apprentice, training under a professional. This whole system is designed, again, to exploit, to drive into debt, to take up years of your life. It is absolutely disgusting. There's no legitimacy to it at all. It's only designed to look good on the surface, to make it look like, uh, you know, they're wanting you to be proficient in your area of work. No, no, no. It's hijacking and controlling, amongst other things, and exploiting, making money. But amongst other things, it's a way to determine, without making it look like that, it's a way to determine who actually gets into the profession and who doesn't. That is exactly what it is. I can tell you that firsthand, um, from going through the certification process to become a teacher. They have it so that they can weed you out, and yet it doesn't look that way. It looks like, oh no, we're just making sure you're going to be, qualified, my fat ass. The whole testing process to get certification is a monumental fraud. I've already talked about that in the past, so I'm not going to go into the details of it now. But it absolutely has nothing whatsoever to do with your proficiency. Nothing. This is another little Zio Jew scam. The whole process of certification, licensure, serves absolutely no purpose except to thwart progress and drain bank accounts. And in fact, as it turns out, that's all such requirements are really designed for. Although, again, they're made to appear on the surface to be in the public interest. It's kind of like the testing that's required of students before they can graduate from high school, right? They got to take the standardized test. It's a complete fraud. First of all, if you've already demonstrated your proficiency with high grades, there's no goddamn fucking need to take a test to determine your proficiency. You've already proven that. Again, it's like teacher certification, right? If you've gotten A's in college across the board and you had a high GPA, you don't need to be tested, do you now? When I think about it, my blood just boils. When I think back at the crap, all the hoops I had to jump through, and they never even show you your test. You're just told what the grade is, right? They can continually fail you multiple times, hoping to discourage you. And now you're stuck with that student loan bill that you still got to pay off in spite of the fact that you're not going to get a job because they keep failing you. You can't contest the grade. You never see the test, ever. I can't believe what they get away with. And yet, people think, still, with all this exploitation, with all this shenanigans, this criminal garbage, that we live in a free country. Look at this bureaucratic, monstrously, scandalously corrupt system we have here. And yet, oh, they make it look so tidy. They got people on their payroll 24/7 coming up constantly with new ways to thwart progress like this, right? Just to screw your life up. That's all this stuff is designed to do. That's all it does. They love it, folks. They love it. And people accept this. Well, I don't. And I hope you don't either. Wars have been fought over crap like this. And yet people in this country just continue to put up with it. They accept this as a legitimately functioning system. It's not legitimate, and it doesn't function. Look what a disaster just the education system itself is, right? In spite of all these regulations and requirements and standardized testing and licensure and certification, blah, 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 look what a farrigan mess it is. I saw an article the other day that supposedly 1/3 now of all kids in America cannot read, of students. 1/3. 1/3. I don't doubt that. I've seen other disgusting statistics about, high school graduates. I forget the percentage now. It was a very high percentage who can't even do math past 5th grade level. How do people accept this? How do they turn a blind eye, just ignore it? How do they think that this is not a result of the system itself? Of course it is. Of course it is. Now, granted, some of that is from the pharmaceuticals, right? Yeah, that plays a role. But clearly, no, in a much bigger way, the responsibility for this is the failure, the deliberate failure of the education system, designed to dumb kids down. And this all in spite of the fact that teachers are now required. That wasn't the case until the 90s, Teachers weren't required to have an education. If you had a high school diploma, you could teach frickin' first graders how to read and do math, right? But now, oh no, you have to be certified. You have to get an education, and you have to take the certification test. In many states, you got to take a recertification test every frickin' 5 years. You got to take courses here and there to keep you up to date on the latest BS. And, this goes on in other professions, too. I'm just referring to education because that's where I, had dealt with this kind of crap. This is monumentally fraudulent, monumentally criminal, and monumentally disgusting. The fruits of it are all around us. We can clearly see this system is goddamn broke. It's it's a joke. And yet people put up with it. And they allow their taxes to fund all this BS. It's more saboteurism. To get a job in just about any field today, one must be licensed or certified, right? No longer, again, can a person train under an apprentice, learn the trade on the job. Those were the good old days. You were still able to earn a living, not as much as you would as a professional, but you're not a professional yet, right? You're not fully trained, but you could earn a living while you were learning the trade. And as you got better, your pay would go up. That is a true legitimate system. What we have today, oh no, you not only don't get paid as a apprentice going to school, you gotta pay them, and you gotta pay them big, juicy, fat wads of cash. And it's going to take you a hell of a lot longer than it would have in the olden days when you worked as an apprentice, right? If you want to be a plumber, you don't need to learn how to write articles, professionally, right? You don't need to know how to dot your I's and cross your T's. It's nice if you can, but you don't need to. That's not what you need to know to be a plumber. To be a good plumber, you got to know how to do piping, right? To be an electrician, you got to know how to rig up wires. You don't need to know about the French Revolution, right? It's nice if you can. And if you want to have a well-rounded education, hopefully, you learned that already in grade school. But right out of high school, if you didn't study that and you never read up on it on your own, you don't need to know that to be an electrician. God damn it. In fact, if you think about it, when you're in college and they're forcing all of these other G suffix classes on you that you're never going to use in your trade, what it's really doing is distracting you away from concentrating totally on the subject that you're majoring in that you want to be proficient at, right? It's weakening your ability to focus on the area of your expertise that you want to be more proficient in. No matter how you look at this, it's bogus. And yet we put up with it. We allow this stuff to be foisted on us, and we pay a high price for it, in cash and otherwise. God damn it, man. And as bad as this is only one very small chip off the iceberg, isn't it? In the way that we're getting screwed over in our modern society. They're giving it to us from every conceivable angle. But just this alone is so incredibly abominable. It thwarts progress. It lessens your ability to be proficient, because you're going to study all these other subjects. It weighs you down with debt. It slows you down. It hampers you in every possible way. Again, I can't believe that people frickin' stand for this. Listen to this interesting quote from W.J. Gent, former editor of the American Fabian. That would be the Fabian Socialist Society. Very pro world government enterprise. Right up there with, H.G. Wells, who was a Fabian himself. And don't forget, he wrote numerous books looking forward to world government. He even wrote a book called The New World Order in 1939, in which he said that in the future, many will hate the New World Order and will die protesting it. Anyway, Gent, back in 1902, wrote this quote as though he's writing from the perspective of someone living way in the future, looking back at a time corresponding with our current era, right? So he's acting like he's writing with hindsight, but he's writing with foresight about where he knew things were going, which is where we're at right now. Listen to what he said. Banks constituted one of the most important forces of the oligarchy, those controlling the world government system. And aren't we there now? Don't banks constitute one of the most important forces? Yeah. Oh, yeah. They run everything, don't they? Run everything into the ground. He said the labor castes, the mercenaries, and the great hordes of secret agents and police were all pledged to the oligarchy. Everyone was answerable to the ones at the top controlling this monstrous global system, he said. The condition of the people of the abyss was pitiable. All of their old liberties were gone. They were labor slaves. Choice of work was denied them. Likewise was denied them the right to bear or possess arms. How interesting is that? They were not land serfs like the farmers. They were machine serfs and labor serfs. This psychopathic bastard was looking again as though he's talking about the past, but he's really looking way ahead into the future, back at what is now our present, right? We're there now, folks. We're there now. They're not land serfs like farmers. They were machine serfs and labor serfs. Slaves. Voluntary servitude slaves who got tricked into a system designed to make, to look legitimate, but a totally corrupt, monstrously criminal, exploitative system that oppresses, controls, They had no choice of work, he says here, right? Why? Because they choose it for you. Oh, they make it so that it doesn't look that way. But that's exactly what's going on, right? They determine whether you get the certification, the licensure. They'll just make it more difficult, or they'll tell you failed the test, you got to take it again. Oh, sorry, you failed it again. Oh, sorry, you failed it again. Then you'll get discouraged, go on and get another major. They are determining what you are useful to them for. It's not about what you want to do with your life. It really isn't. If they don't like what you're doing, what you're saying, they'll find a way to get you fired, right? You lose your licensure. It happens all the time, folks. And as time goes on, it's going to get even more oppressive. They want absolute control over you. And that's only if they find you to be in any way useful. Otherwise, they'll just eliminate you. With the COVID jabs, they're indiscriminately eliminating people across the board and getting away with it. Really sucks when you wake up one day and you realize, wow, this world doesn't work the way I thought it did at all. At all. It's not pleasant to have to come to grips with it, but it's even more unpleasant for those that want to wear blindfolds and earplugs and pretend that it's actually working the way that they were told. No, we can't do that now, can we? We're helping to facilitate their criminal activity when we do that. We can't live in denial. It's not a pleasant reality to come to grips with, but to deny it is to roll out the red carpet so they can continue to get away with this. This system is rotten to the core, and it has to go, folks. I love how the Zio bastards screwing this world up always talk about sustainability, sustainable development. The system they have created is not sustainable. Oh, it's sustainable for them, but not for the rest of the 99.9% of the population. It's not sustainable, god damn it. Anyway, coming back to the teacher certification thing, and again, this applies across the board with all fields, but this was my area, so that's why I'm focusing mostly on this. But look what a scam this is. They don't even hide it, folks, about how the way the whole thing is set up is about control, and it's not about you, not about advancing society. It's not about helping you as an individual to pursue the career that you want and you feel you're suited for. No. It's all about what the Zio pig bastards running the show want. Listen to what we find here in the December 1967 issue of the NEA Journal, the National Education Association, the biggest teacher union journal. It said, we will become a political power second to no other special interest group. NEA will have more and more to say about how a teacher is educated, whether he or she should be admitted to the profession. Did you catch that? They're going to determine how an aspiring teacher is educated, and they're going to determine whether he or she is actually admitted to the profession. They're going to determine it. Not you. They are. And this is what licensure, certifications, requirements, this is what it's all about. Deciding who gets in and who doesn't. It's not about making sure you're proficient. Oh, no. No, it's a way of disguising their control over the whole damn thing. Who gets in and who stays in and who doesn't get in at all. It goes on to say, and depending on his or her behavior and ability, whether he or she should stay in the profession. Yeah, so there you go. They're determining who gets in, and if you should be allowed to get in, they're going to determine if you stay in the profession. It's all about what they want. You must be a pucker-upper. You will not get the job unless you and you won't keep the job unless you. And that, my friends, is all that the licensure/certification requirement is all about. It's a way of disguising their control, whether you get in and whether you stay in, whatever profession it is. George Fisher, former NEA president, speaking before an NEA assembly on July 3rd of 1970, made this comment. He said, "A good deal of work has been done to begin to bring about uniform certification controlled by the uniform profession in each state," meaning, in teaching, right? This was 1970. Can you not see that this was their goal early on, to come up with certification and licensure requirements in order to determine who gets in and to determine who stays in? There was no licensure certification requirement, right? It was in its early phases, but you weren't required, if you got a license, teacher license certification, you probably get better pay in some states, whatever, but it wasn't required. They didn't push that. They had to do it gradually, right? Not all at once. That's how they introduced their tyranny. But by 20, 25 or so years later, I think it was the mid-90s when this BS was fully implemented now, and it was required. 25 years later is when they finally officially introduced it as policy. But as of 1970, it wasn't in place yet, but here they are telling you that this was their goal, that this is where they were going to take us. A good deal of work, he said, once again, has been done to begin to bring about uniform certification controlled by the unified profession in each state. A model Professional Practices Act has been developed, and work has begun to secure passage of the act in each state where such legislation is needed. Do you see how relentless these bastards are in getting control of every aspect of life? This is just the NEA speaking here in reference to education, right? But they've done this across the board. They have their little agents working, and always have had them working in every profession to sabotage every goddamn thing under the sun. And all the while they've been doing this, the general public has been sucking snot and doing nothing about it, not even being aware of it. And when told, finding ways to brush it off. Oh, it's no big deal. They're just trying to improve how society runs, make it more efficient. Well, they've done what they said they were going to do. And look at the fruits of it. Do you think this made society more proficient? Do you think it helped it to run better? Look what a goddamn mess this whole friggin' system is. With these new laws, this quote goes on to say, we will finally realize our 113-year-old dream of controlling who enters the field of education, who stays in, and who leaves the profession, who we fire, who we smoke out, right? Who gets in, who stays in, who leaves. In other words, we're going to control it such that we'll not only get you fired from one job, but you won't be able to get another job in another town or even another state. We'll have you smoked out of the profession altogether if you don't. Did you notice how George Fisher, by the way, can you guess what kind of name that is? Notice how we said that at this point, this was back in 1970, right? He said at this point that it was a 113-year-old goal. Now, isn't that interesting? That's going back to, 1857. It was their goal, he said, since 1857 to have this kind of control. What was going on back then? That was the the Prussian model, right? I did a show a while back, a video a while back on the Prussian model and how that's what's been followed in this and in most other countries around the world, every other country around the world. The Prussian model, the Jew created Prussian model of absolute control centralized in a few hands controlling education. And here he was in 1970 saying, oh, we've made great progress. And he's projecting forward. Soon we will have in every state licensure and certification requirements. They got it. They got it. And look what a fargen mess education is. Once this is done, he said, we can also control the teacher training institutions. First, we're going to control the education angle. But ultimately, we're going to hijack the collegiate teacher training institutions and make sure, and sure enough, right? All schools today have to be licensed, right? Certified, you know. I remember the college I went to, you know, hearing about the Gestapos, that's what they called them, coming in, you know, to observe, to inspect, so that they could maintain their certification. Schools across the board are under this pressure now. So it's not just individual people in the workforce that are to be certified and licensed, right? Institutions as well. And in order to meet those certification requirements, you have to employ certain textbooks that they have created themselves, right? You got to make sure you're up to par with what they want to be taught, which include things like behavioral objectives for each class that's taught. I remember when I had to write out for my practicum, you know, these lesson plans. What a joke that was. And as a part of every lesson plan, every single one, you had to write out what the behavioral objective was for that particular lesson. Every single class that you taught, whatever the subject was, you had to have a behavioral objective. And I remember asking, what the hell? I'm a history teacher. What am I supposed to write here? And basically they would say, oh, well, just be creative. Just come up with anything. Just put something in there. What a sick joke, folks. You see what monkeys they're making out of us with this crap? No legitimacy to any of it. This is what you get when you allow Jews to run your country, folks. This is why they were kicked out so many times before. How long are we going to wait to kick their asses out? Now. Every country in the world is infested with them. It's time to kick their asses the hell out. And where to send them? I can think of one country that wouldn't object to them going there. And I don't think they could do much harm there either. Let's send all the bastards to Antarctica. All expenses paid trip. Anyway, the public is led to believe that the licensure certification requirement, again, is in the best interest of the prospecting neophyte, you know, training to become an expert in his or her field, you know, and that it's in the best interest of society. No, not at all. That's not what's going on here. That was never their intent, and that's not the way it plays out. It's playing out with disastrous effects, and that's exactly the whole purpose behind it all. I know I covered this before, but as a refresher course for those that heard it, for those that didn't hear that discussion, well, here it is. I'm not going to go into all the details, but just this aspect of it. Once you graduate from college, let's say you're going to be a teacher, right, like I was planning on, you've gone through all the hoops, right? It took you 4 years just to get your BA, which is basically useless. A lot of schools won't even hire you to teach with just a BA. You got to go on to get your frickin' master's, right? But in any case, there are some schools that will hire you with the understanding that you will get your master's, and some schools will help you, to do that. But you have to get your master's within 5 years. If you don't, you're going to lose that job. You need to get your master's within 5 years, and then they'll keep you on. What a sick joke that is. We're talking, people who have already gone through 12 years of high school, of grade school, right? Graduated with a high school diploma. That alone automatically certifies you to teach first graders. Holy Jesus, with a 5th grade education, you can teach first graders, right? But no, on top of your high school diploma, you must get your BA, and then within 5 years, you got to get your master's. With some schools, they won't hire you even with the BA at all. You have to get your master's first, right? But then you jump through all those hoops, you graduate, and it's still not enough. You still got to take the certification test. Even though you have high grades already, high GPA, doesn't matter, you got to take the certification test. So now you graduate, but depending on your state, that was the case with me, I couldn't take the test until September. They do this on purpose. They didn't offer it in the summer, right? So you can start fresh in September when the new school year starts. No, you got to take the test, and then it takes at least a month for you to hear back from the bastards whether or not you passed the thing. If you did, then that's not enough. Now you got to apply for the license. Taking the test and passing it is only step one. You shell out big bucks for that. Now you get the word that you passed the test, if you did. Now you got to shell out more money for the certification, for the actual certificate, right? So now that takes at least another month. Now you're into, mid to late October, or I should say late October, early November, right? 2 months plus have gone by. You can't teach yet. And so now you finally get the damn license. In the meantime, your student loan bills are going to be coming in now, right? And you haven't gotten the job yet that you went to school for. You weren't able to because everything was delayed with this goddamn certification process. So now you got to go into default, or what's the other word where you suspend it? What an unbelievable oppressive hassle. You've already demonstrated your proficiency. You jumped through all their hoops. You got a high GPA, but this crap is holding you back. Do you see what an abominable bitch of a system this is? And it's as Jewish as it can get. They're behind all of this crap, folks. It's atrocious. Look what they're putting these students through. It gets so discouraging, and that's what they want. They want you to throw your arms up. They just made fat wads of cash off of you, telling you, oh, you can't get out of your student loans. So a lot of people, you know what they do? I've known a lot of people who have done this. They said the hell with the whole damn thing. They got their degree, but they got so discouraged with it, they wound up driving taxi, in New York or something, where they get good tips, and it's not as much money they probably would have earned with their college degree, but, they're getting by, and they're paying their student loans that way. This is what they want. This is what they want. Make all that money off you, oppress you all those years in school, thinking you're getting somewhere, and then you never do, right? You understandably get this, not that everybody does that, but there's a good many that do. They go to school and they never wind up in the profession because of this big, hurdle in their way, the licensure / certification requirement. How about getting married? You get a marriage certificate, right? You are certified as married. Another whopping fraud. The marriage contract is only supposed to be between two individuals, right? And that's it. The husband and the wife, right? Or nowadays, the husband and the husband, or the wife and the wife. No, but seriously, a marriage is between two people, right? But when you have the licensure, the marriage license fiasco, it's a three-party system. It's the husband, the wife, and el governmente that sticks its nose in everything. Again, more absolute fraudulent. The whole certification process, I can't stress it enough, is a monstrous lying freaking fraud. It's all about control and saboteurism and exploitation, right? The marriage license, in essence, gives the government power over the marriage. And even though it might not as yet be fully exercising that power, the government, the sky is the limit as to where it can go and surely will go eventually. The very fact that people go along with fiascos like this, right? You're giving them, since they issue the license, right? You're giving them power and authority that they don't have. It's more of the same crap, of voluntary servitude, right? People are tricked into this stuff and signing over their rights without even realizing it. The system is not legitimate. It's criminal. It's got to be completely abolished. It is not a step forward. It is a major fall backward. So many for so long have allowed the government this type of access into their lives, into every aspect of their lives, that when it starts intruding more aggressively, the public has been so conditioned, it doesn't even know that it doesn't have to play this game. It's kind of like a bird that comes to the feeder. After a while, especially when several generations have gone by, grandma keeps putting the seed in the feeder. The bird doesn't know now by the second, third generation, but the birds don't know how to go and fend for themselves. They don't know how to pull worms out of the ground, right? They've been training their young to go to the feeder. Hey, this is where it's at. The birds will die in the wild now. They're domesticated. This is what's been done with the public. They've been, conditioned now to thinking that they can't function in life, and the system is designed to make it so difficult for you to function otherwise that people just accept this as the norm. And all the while, they have given complete control over the central authority to hamper their every move in life. And again, this is all the licensure certification requirement was ever designed to do. Not to ensure proficiency. And it doesn't, does it? Of course not. It was never intended to do that. Just the illusion of doing that. It's all about control, folks, and about saboteurism, and about exploitation. They make huge amounts of money. Every time you take the certification test, I don't even know what it is now. When I took it 25 years ago, it was $100. Oh, I can imagine it's a hell of a lot more than that now. But even that adds up, right? $100 for every aspiring, just in the teacher profession, for every aspiring teacher. Multiply that now by all the other professions, right? Whatever profession you want to get into. You got to be a licensed plumber, a licensed electrician. You didn't have this years ago, right? When you trained as an apprentice, you didn't have this licensure BS, and yet you had much more efficient plumbers and electricians back then, didn't you? Much more efficient teachers. You didn't have 1/3 of students across the country unable to read before the licensure and certification BS, right? It is not a step forward, is it? It doesn't benefit society at all, does it? It doesn't benefit individuals either. It screws them, and it screws society, and that's all it was designed to do by you-know-who. But I'll tell you where the marriage license is ultimately going. Bertrand Russell told us this a long time ago, right? That ultimately you will not choose who your partner is. The government will. They will also determine whether or not you procreate with your partner. He actually said that many, Huxley had talked about this too, that many people will be forced to cohabitate with sterilized partners. Well, we're there now, aren't we? Have you seen the reports on birth rates dropping exponentially all around the world? You know why that is, right? One of the reasons, one of the main reasons, the goddamn COVID vax. Amongst other things, there's sterilants in them, or a good many of them anyway. Many people have been sterilized, amongst all the other horrors that have emerged from these goddamn mandated poisons. Sterilization. That's been going on for quite some time now. Mr. Billy Boy Gates funded a major operation in Africa, East Asia, India. Again, I cannot believe what these SOBs get away with and continue to get away with. Their crimes are piled heaven high. They're right in your face, and yet you can't get still a great many people to see what the hell is going on. We've already been seeing some of the toxic things that have resulted from marriage licensing, right? The government determines now when there's a divorce who gets what, right? A lot of people have gone into financial ruin over a divorce. There are some sleazy women who got married just for that reason, right? They'll stick with the guy 6 months, a year, just so they can now, get alimony or palimony, from their husband and live off the hog, right? All because of the marriage license. The third party now is controlling the whole damn thing. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. But what's even more unbelievable is that people still think we live in a free country when you have this kind of crap going on. It's not freedom, folks. It is the antithesis of freedom. And by the way, there's some men who do that, themselves, right? They'll marry a woman that has money just so they can take her for a ride. It works both ways. But more often than not, they want to target men, right? Yeah. That's why we had the Zio-created women's lib system. That's what that was all about. How about to drive a car? In order to do so, one must first register it, cha-ching, and then obtain a permit, cha-ching, then a license, cha-ching, and in many states, the car must also be inspected, cha-ching. It's another certification, right? You got to have your inspection sticker. Your car is now certified as safe and up to code, whatever. Really? Even when you first buy it, it's brand new right off the lot, you still have to get it inspected. They claim that the inspection thing was to keep clunkers off the road that, are a hazard and could break down and cause an accident, or, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not the reason. Not when they require brand new cars right off the lot to get an inspection sticker. Really? What a frickin' joke, man. Of course, you also have to get it, in most states, insured, more cha-ching, and then you got to pay the excise tax, cha-ching. Look at all these fees. Abominable, man. In what sense are we free in this country when we are compelled to comply with such nonsense, right? Of course, one must go through a similar process to drive a motorcycle, and in most states, even a moped as well. Pretty soon, bicycles will have to be, you'll have to be licensed to ride a goddamn bicycle. You'll have to take a bicycle riding test. Why is there a license requirement to do such things? Does it really make the streets safer? Absolutely not. There are drunk drivers who have their license, quote unquote, right? My God, as bad as my eyesight is, did you know that I could get my license today if I wanted to? I could. All you need is a doctor to sign off for you. And you know how easy that is? I know if I was to drive again, I'd be an accident waiting to happen, right? For many reasons. I have my whole visual field is loaded with blind spots, which is why I stopped of my own accord. They didn't take my license from me. I handed it in because I realized, yeah, geez, I would go to pull out at a stop sign, I would look both ways. I saw no cars. I would go to pull out, and all of a sudden, I would hear a guy beeping his horn, and I would be like, where the hell did he come from? I didn't even know I had blind spots. I couldn't understand. How come I didn't see him? I finally went, to the eye doctor. They did a visual field test. And sure enough, my whole visual field is loaded with blind spots. There are times where I just don't see something, which is why when I ride my bike now, I have to constantly scan the road ahead of me to make sure I'm not missing something. But I don't want to drive a car for that main reason because of the blind spots. But anyway, I could get my license if I told the eye doctor, because they don't know. They don't know how you see. It doesn't matter how many eye tests they give you. At the end of the day, they ask you, do you feel, the last couple of years that I still drove, my eyesight was taking a dive then, but I still kept driving. But I didn't take the driver's visual test, right? I got a doctor's note to override that. And yet technically, because I couldn't pass the regular visual test at the registry, I shouldn't have been able to drive, right? I was only able to drive those last couple of years because I told the eye doctor that I felt, and I did feel that I could still drive, right? But then when I started having those problems with the blind spots, I finally realized, geez, no, I can't do this anymore. But do you understand my point? I still could be driving if I wanted to. I could still be issued a license, even though technically I would be a hazard on the road right now to myself and to others, right? So is the licensure really a guarantee that you're a good driver? No, no. You can have a severe visual impairment and be a threat to others, but I got my license. It's a joke, folks. What determines whether you should drive or not is whether, you have the skills for it, right? You practice. You go out with someone else who's a good driver. You don't have to get a license from the state. You go out with someone, a friend, a neighbor, your wife or husband, whatever, right? Who's a good driver. They take you out in a parking lot, which is what you do anyway when you get your permit, right? They take you out in the parking lot and have you experiment, and as you get more comfortable, then they take you out on the road. You don't need a goddamn license for that. You don't. And even when you have it, it doesn't mean anything, right? You could fake it. You could lie and convince your eye doctor, even though you have a visual impairment, and still get the damn thing. And there you are on the road, who is just an accident waiting to happen, right? It's a joke. You can do that with any profession, right? You can fake it and, get your license to practice as an electrician or as a plumber. You can suck at it. And there are sucky electricians out there and plumbers out there, right? But they have their license. It means nothing. There are people that are really good naturally, right? They have a good talent at plumbing. They do their own plumbing at home. They don't tell anybody because they can get a big fine. They might do a better job than all the plumbers in town. But for whatever reason, they just don't want to do it for a living, or they don't want to go through the hassle of taking the test or whatever, So they're going to be prevented from going into the profession because of the licensure thing, right? When they're really good. Whereas others who are really bad are going to get it because they don't mind jumping through the hoops. It's a joke. It's a sick joke. There's doctors out there who are licensed to practice medicine, who are quacks. In fact, especially since COVID, I think we can safely say now that pretty much all of them are, right? Certainly the majority. They're quacks. Oh, but they're licensed. You see what a joke just on that level the whole thing is? It means nothing, folks. It means nothing. You had some money to pay someone off so you can get your little license. Hell, when you got money, you can pretty much do anything in this world, right? And look legitimate when in fact you're not. So does it mean anything at the end of the day? No, No matter how you slice it, it comes up peanuts. Licensure, certification, I do believe that, of all the professions, the medical is the most important. You definitely want someone who's going to be well trained. But in the old days, there wasn't licensure even then for that, right? How did you become a good doctor? You trained as an apprentice. You weren't allowed to operate on someone until you had sat in and observed a professional doctor, and that doctor felt comfortable enough to trust you slowly to ease your way in, to give you the scalpel on this and that occasion, but he's right there to make sure you don't screw up. Slowly, gradually. That's how it was done, and you didn't have 1/10 the problems then that you have now with certification and licensure. It's a sick fargan joke, and it's gotta go, among so many other screwy things in our society that our little tribal friends have introduced. Again, it's all about fleecing, controlling, sabotaging, holding you back. Ay, 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 ay. And look where we're headed. Pretty soon, you won't have to carry a license or a certification certificate. It'll all be on your implanted little microchip or your graphene oxide nanochips. In most towns today, you can't get a plumber to install pipes in your house or an electrician to replace some old wires unless you first shell out some shekels to town hall to get to pay a permit fee, right? Did you know that if, let's say, you had 3 pipes that need replacing in 3 different fixtures in your home, the upstairs bathroom, the downstairs bathroom, and then down in the basement, whatever, 3 pipes, right? That's 3 jobs, and thus you got to pay 3 fees. In my town that I grew up in a few years ago before I moved, I had such a situation, right? There were 3 fixtures that had to be replaced. It was $80 for each. Forget the plumber's fee. Just for the town hall's permit fee, it was $240 just for the goddamn permit, right? And then from there, whatever the plumber charged. That drove up the bill, pretty damn high, much more than what it needed to be. And again, people put up with this. You're already paying outrageous property tax. Oh, and I'll be talking about that fiasco soon, as well as the income tax, the fleecing of America. You're already paying outrageous property taxes to these bastards, right? And then on top of that, they come up with this little permit fee. The same with electrician, right? If you need, you got some old wires that need replacing, for every individual wire that gets replaced, bang, another permit fee, right? Santa Maria. This isn't a charge that the plumber charges you, or, well, he might charge you that, but it doesn't go to him. It goes to the town hall, right? He has to pay it to them. Sick, sick joke. So ask yourself this question. What benefit could such a requirement possibly provide anyone except the boys at City Hall who line their pockets with this cash? Does it benefit you? No. Does it benefit the plumber? No. Does it ensure that the plumber is going to do a better job? It doesn't ensure anything except making the boys at town hall rich. It's not just the federal government, folks, or the state government. It's the local governments now that are fleecing us. Just look at, again, the goddamn property tax, right? This system is not freedom. Not by any measure. The original colonists that fought that phony Revolutionary War, if they could see the crap that is foisted on us today, they would never have fought the damn war in the first place. They wouldn't have participated in creating this country because they would have realized that it's going to wind up far worse than anything that they were told they had then. Most of what they were told, about the T-tax was a complete fraud, right? It wasn't even, it was not an unfair tax to begin with. But as bad as they were led to believe that was, it's nothing in comparison with the BS that they're shoving down our throats now. How about having to obtain a fire permit for burning a pile of frickin' leaves in your own backyard? Many towns across the country now require this, or you can get a big fine. What does it do to have? Does getting a fee ensure that you're going to be able to safely burn leaves? Do they give you a training course on how to properly put out the fire and make sure that you contain it? No. It's just an arbitrary fee to make money off of you. That's all it is. You are now licensed to burn leaves. You still have the potential, as much as you did before you paid that fee, to burn the whole neighborhood down, right? They don't provide you any training on safety. Nothing. You're paying for their permission to burn leaves on your own property. Oh, yeah, that's freedom, all right. Get a good whiff of that freedom. How are you liking it? What a miserable, rotten, Zio-rigged bastard system we live under. That little permit is yet more licensure, more certification. And again, it's a joke because you get nothing out of it. Your neighbors get nothing out of it. Nothing is accomplished. It does nothing good for you, for your neighbors, for society. It just lines the pockets of the bastards at town hall. The very word permit is totalitarian, right? It's telling you that we, the ones in control, will permit you, we will allow you to burn leaves on your own property if you pay this fee. You know what that is, right? In reality, it's a mafioso protection racket. That's all it is. That's all the income tax is, too. Pay us this certain fee and we won't break your legs, right? Ultimately, I mean, that's essentially what they're saying. We won't arrest you. We won't charge you as a criminal as long as we can get our cut. That's all it is. That's all permits are. That's all licensure is. That's all certification is. A big month that follows June. A big July. Pretty soon, you'll have to be certified to wipe your ass, right? Did you know that back in the World War II era, my great uncle used to complain about this all the time? They used to have a poll tax. Can you believe? You know what that was? It was a tax for the privilege to walk on the sidewalk that your tax dollars already paid for. It's like when you pay tolls to ride on the turnpike or whatever, right? The state highway. Your tax dollars already paid to build the damn thing. And yet there they are, double charging you now for the privilege to ride on a highway you already paid for. Can you imagine these sleazy little bastards, how much they must laugh their fat asses off, that they can get people to double pay, triple, quadruple pay for something they've already paid for to begin with, right? Oh, they love it. They take you for suckers 24/7, 365 days a year, and people just continually put up with it and put up with it and put up with it. We should have put our feet down a long time ago, folks. Unfortunately, as time has gone on and they've gotten away with more and more and more, we're in such a mess now, and they've amassed such an arsenal of high-tech weaponry. Is it even possible anymore? I'll argue it is, but oh boy, it's going to come at a high cost now. To rise up against this bitch of a system, it's not going to be overturned without it getting really ugly, unfortunately. I'll never forget years ago, there was this Thai restaurant I used to frequent. I really liked the guy, Well, I liked his food, but I liked the guy too. It was really nice. I'd sometimes stay after I ate. I'd hang around and talk with him. Anyway, one day he was all excited. The store next to where his restaurant was, it was in like a little shopping plaza thing, but the store next door was going to be closing, and so he bought the he not bought, but he jumped on that next door property, to expand his restaurant, right? So he knocked the wall out, so now he could have more seating. Anyway, it cost him a good deal of money, to uh, renovate and incorporate it into his already existing restaurant. But he was so proud when it was all done. He was made to wait 3 months until an inspector could come in and give him certification that it was all up to code. And while that 3 months was going on, he could not open up the other half. He actually didn't knock the whole wall down. He just had a big doorway where people could walk through from one part to the other. But in any case, he couldn't use that. He had to block it off. He couldn't allow people to sit in there and eat, expand his business yet, until the inspector came. So they made him wait 3 months. And in the meantime, he's paying rent for that other whole section, right? 3 months of rent. But that's not all. He also decided that he wanted to get, a liquor license because he knew that would, bring in more money. And $100,000 he had to shell out for a liquor license. Think about that. What a goddamn fargan fraud that is. $100,000 for a license to sell alcohol. You think you live in a free country? Really? Do you now? Sick joke. And what does that license do exactly? Do they train you? That's a hell of a steep fee, even if they did provide you training, right? But what do you get out of that? Nothing. It's a mafioso goddamn protection racket. Pay me the fee and I won't shut you down. That's it. That's all it is. They don't provide you with training on how to ensure that your customers don't drink too much, and to, have someone in the parking lot to make sure if they bump into something, they're too drunk to drive, blah, blah, blah. No. No legitimacy at all. It's an arbitrary, monstrous fee just to rape and pillage you. And yet again, we live in a free country, don't we? Right. But anyway, when you apply for a permit, understand it's totally elective, right? You do it of your own free will. There's no law that requires it. It's just their policy. It's not law. But the impression is that, oh no, it's definitely law. You have to do it. Do you know that there are a great many people across the country that don't pay property tax? Did you know that? There's a lot of ways to get out of it. People don't realize it. You don't have to do it. The impression is that you do, and that's why everybody complies. You don't have to pay income tax either. There's no law that requires that either. Did you know that? Oh, there's the illusion that there is. They'll use the 16th Amendment. The 16th Amendment is a lie. It's a fraud. It's not even legitimate. It doesn't even say anything about wages in that amendment, because wages are not constitutional. Other parts of the Constitution forbid a direct tax. Did you know that? I'll get into that sometime. It's all a fargan lie. When you apply for a license, an application is elective. You are applying. There's nothing that says you have to apply. But because everything functions that way, and everybody has gone along with it for so long, people think that it's actually a law that you have to do it. You don't. It's like the Social Security number, right? You don't have to have one. But everybody has it, and they now issue them without you even requesting it, right? So people think that it's, you got to have it. And everything functions around that. They've made it very difficult now, so you can't basically do anything without one, but you don't have to have one. You don't. There's no law that says you have to have a goddamn Social Security number. Guys, so many things have been foisted on us, and the impression has been made that it's absolutely legal, you got to do it, when in fact that's not the case. And so it is with licensure, with certification, the Social Security number, on and on and on. Absolutely disgusting how we have been tricked into giving over our rights to a monstrously tyrannical Zio pig system. Look how, before you get your license, you get the permit, right? You're consenting to their authority when you do that. When you get the permit, you're agreeing that you're submitting to their authority for them to permit you to be trained to drive, and then ultimately to get the license now that certifies you as an official safe driver. It's garbage. Again, you can get around that. I already told you how I, got around it for a couple of years, right? I convinced my doctor, which overrode me taking the eye test at the registry. I got my doctor to sign for me. He didn't know if my eyesight was good enough. He couldn't tell, right? He asked me, do you feel that you can see good enough to drive? I said, yeah. Okay, there's your signature. Santa Maria, man. That's it. And so now, suddenly, I was declared a safe driver. I have my license. See, I can drive. When, in fact, I knew deep down inside that, I probably shouldn't be on the road. But in my mind, I'm like, well, I gotta earn a living, I had some close calls. And so finally, that's when I handed my license and I realized, no, I can't do this. I can't be a threat, to myself or to others on the road. It's just a matter of time. I knew I was going to get. But do you see how the licensure thing? It's a fraud, folks. It means absolutely nothing. It's just a way to make money off you. You're the one ultimately who can determine, or others who see that you're a crappy driver. There are some people who suck at driving, but they're in denial, right? But, there's no danger when others can see you're a bad driver. They can simply, call the police and say, hey, this person is going to kill somebody. And so now from there, the cops can monitor you and say, yeah, no, sorry, we have to take your license. You're just not a safe driver. You're going to kill yourself. You're going to kill somebody else. You don't need a license for that. It means nothing. 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 And like I said, guys, even professions where you're doing a very important job that's a matter of life and death, if you're a surgeon, that doesn't require a license either. That doesn't mean anything. There's quack doctors out there with licenses, right? Doesn't mean a goddamn fargan thing. It's just a way, once again, to control you, to exploit you. No, doctors don't need a license. They need, maybe a certificate of proficiency from an experienced doctor that, you trained under. I'm all for that, right? It shows that, yes, I will certify and I'll risk my own practice, my own reputation on endorsing this guy because he trained under me for years and, blah, 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 blah. And then you get referrals, right, from other patients. Oh, yes, I can assure you this doctor is very trustworthy. He operated on me and my brother and my sister and, blah, 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 blah. That's all the certification you need, not some government receipt that means nothing. Nothing. It just means that you had enough money to shell out to buy the damn thing and enough money to go to an outrageously overpriced school and learn a bunch of other crap that you didn't even need to know while you were training to be a doctor. You don't need any of this, guys. It's a sick frickin' joke. I cannot stress it enough. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with little Miss Alice Bailey, right? She was wife of Foster Bailey, 33rd degree Mason. She wrote about the coming Masonic, Judeo-Masonic New World Order quite a bit and looked forward to it, right? Anyway, in her book, Externalization of the Hierarchy, she talked about a new group of world servers engaged in the effort of group work of a new order, the world of the brotherhood, Masonry, the forces of light, and that, quote, out of the spoliation of all existing culture and civilization, the new world order must be built. She then went on to forecast that, notice how she said for the new world order to be built, everything's got to be trashed, right? The spoliation of everything. And isn't that what they've been doing? Through many means, one of which has been, the certification licensure requirement, right? Screwing everything up to give them a monopoly of control. Anyway, she went on to say, Great changes will take place. National currencies will be largely superseded by a universal monetary exchange. Holy crap, she wrote this back in the 1940s. And look how now we're seeing this big push for CBDCs, right? Central bank digital currencies. This is exactly the type of crap she was talking about. A centralized currency. National currencies will be a thing of the past, right? She said national material assets and the needed commodities will all be provided for under an entirely new system. Yeah, world socialism. She said private enterprise will be regulated. Yeah, through certification and licensure requirements and on and on. They will be regulated, she said. The great public utilities, the major material resources, and the sources of planetary wealth, iron, steel, oil, and wheat, for instance, will be owned by a governing, controlling international group under international direction. We're there. This moment is symptomatic of a change in the orientation of man's thinking. Yeah, through propaganda and brainwashing. Foundational, she said, to the new order, the new world order, which will emerge. And much of this has been brought about, again, through the fraud frickin' fiasco of licensure / certification. This is where we're at today, folks. She wrote this back again in the 40s, right? Roughly 80 years ago. We're there now. Everything she called for here, it's done. We've got things in this country like, OSHA, the FCC, the FDA, the EPA, the USDA, on and on and on and on and on, all these alphabet agencies regulating and controlling everything. Private enterprise is indeed being regulated and controlled through licensure, through certification, requiring that of individuals, of corporations, small competitive corporations to drive them out, right? Utilities companies, manufacturing firms, human services facilities, you name it. All are being regulated, restricted in the interests of the Zio bastards at the top, the big power and money grab profiteers, right? While all the socialistic controls and restrictions placed on businesses today, which began back in the days of FDR. He was the one that started this whole train rolling, right, with his socialistic legislation. Only the largest corporations can afford, to meet the demands of legislation, of all this bureaucratic garbage, all the regulations and certifications, right? Only the big corporations have been able to afford this. This is one of the reasons why small companies have gone, there's been others too, but that's one of the reasons, right? It's driven them out of the business because they can't afford all this compliance, right? Remember when, just for example, I think this started back in the 90s, where they were requiring all businesses to install ramps leading up, to their entrance, right? For the handicap. Do you honestly think that was done in favor of handicapped people? In small towns, especially, where in some cases there aren't even any handicapped people, and yet they were still made to put the frickin' ramps in. Do you know how costly that was? It drove some businesses completely out, right? That's all this is. It's not out of concern for goddamn handicapped people. In some cases, handicapped people did benefit from it, and that's nice. But if the government is going to make a requirement for that, why didn't the government provide the funding for it then, right? No, they forced it on the business owner, which drove, like I said, a lot of small businesses out, which is exactly the main reason why they required it. And yet all the while, it's good PR, right? It makes it look like the government is actually concerned about handicapped people. Oh, isn't that nice? They don't give a goddamn about handicapped people. By the way, about this same time, I used to work with autistic kids, and I noticed now that they started implementing programs whereby some of the higher functioning autistic kids, could get jobs working at various local businesses, And it seemed good on the surface, right? Oh, isn't that nice? The government's concerned about them and they're getting them into work programs. But you know what that's really all about, right? Cheap labor, exploiting these handicapped young adults and adults, Not about them. And by the way, not to be gross, but a lot of these autistic workers had some, let's just say, very nasty habits, right? A lot of them were working in restaurants, handling food. And in some cases, not directly, they weren't cooking the food, but, they'd bag it up. They were cleaning the tables with not very clean hands, right? I mean, is this really about handicapped people in there? No, 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 no. The businesses loved it because they were paying them a fraction the wages that they would, anyone else, right? Guys, it's so disgusting. I'm all for, helping handicapped people, right? And giving them a sense of pride and whatever. But in a restaurant where they're not cleanly, it's a joke. Everything's a joke that this system has introduced. And why? Because the ones introducing it are scum. And you know who they are. Anyway, guys, you got the point. Sorry, I went a little over my hour time limit here. But, yeah, licensure, certification, there's no legitimacy to it. There never was. There was never intended to be. Only the illusion thereof, right? Again, just another way that we have been scammed. It's got to go. It's got to stop. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. We'll catch you in the next video. Take care.